When you're right, you are right. Sony, thank you. I have been screaming on this channel that Sony is 5 years behind Microsoft's strategy. And when they looked at what Microsoft was doing on their own platform last year in quarter 3, Microsoft had over half of all of Sony's software sales on their own platform were Microsoft games. They looked at that and said, what the hell are we doing? You know, when Microsoft started publishing games on PC, everybody except for the Microsoft fans were like, oh my God. I mean, what's the point of having an Xbox? They're on PC. But everybody still kind of was like, well, PC is not the same as consoles. And you know, that's just a different thing. And people started having their copium about it, you know, especially the Xbox fans. They really were having copium about it. No, we still have our exclusives, blah, blah, blah. And you fast forwarded, and then Microsoft slowly but surely started acquiring more companies, and those games started being on other platforms. One of the biggest ones being games like Minecraft, right? And the Xbox fans were like, well, Minecraft was kind of already third party, so it makes sense they just kept it on those platforms. And again, they started coping. It's not a main franchise game. It's not Halo. It's not Gears. It's not, you know, one of our major first party brands. And the Microsoft fanboys coped because they didn't want to realize that Microsoft was slowly but surely moving away from their traditional first party console manufacturer and maker. Well, Sony started publishing their games on PC. And now the Sony fans are like, well, it's not the same, blah, 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 blah. With the rumored Xbox that is coming out that will have Steam on it, if you haven't heard about it, please Google the next Xbox having Steam on it. That would eliminate any first party games being exclusive to PlayStation, because if you purchase the new Xbox and it has access to Steam, you can download those first party PlayStation games from Steam on your Xbox. So there would be no exclusives. But today, Sony, you went a step further. You don't have Game Pass yet, which I am dubbing Sony Gameplay or Play Pass. You can feel free to trademark that. Sony Play Pass as their Game Pass alternative. Well, you don't have that yet. But what is Sony doing? What is Sony doing that Microsoft also is doing? Sony is bringing their exclusives, their PlayStation exclusives, to Nintendo. That's right. Sony is a third-party publisher now. And I want to hear how you Sony ponies will cope in the comments. Copium, you say. Today had a Nintendo Direct. A Nintendo Direct had two, not one, but two Sony properties, Sony first-party properties, showing up on your Nintendo Switch. And you're gonna probably say, well, it's not God of War. Oh, it's not The Last of Us, so it doesn't count. And it again, you're just sounding, you're echoing what you criticized years ago. So please tell me how this is different. Patapon 1 and 2 is now coming to the Nintendo Switch as a package deal. And the copium is going to be, well, these are older games, just like the Microsoft fans said. These aren't the biggest franchises, just like the Microsoft fans said. But what do you think is going to happen when these games perform extremely well for Sony? Do you think that their shareholders are going to look at them and go, hey, why aren't you putting more games on other platforms? They're already on Steam, and the new Xbox, you could play those games on there. Why wouldn't you also continue to push these games on Nintendo? They have a 150 million install base. Are you going to ignore that crowd? Your console hasn't sold as many. The PS5 is not anywhere near 150 million. The PS4 didn't end up anywhere near 150 million. But it wasn't just Patapon 1 and 2. We get a brand new entry. So this isn't even an old game in the franchise. We're getting a brand new entry in the Hot Shots Golf series with Everybody's Golf Hot Shots. It's called Everybody's Golf, I believe, everywhere else. So this is kind of merging them together, I'm assuming, so that they can get some parity across the ponds in other countries. But yeah, now we have Everybody's Golf Hot Shots, another Sony first-party property on Nintendo. So I have to ask myself, how many games does Sony have? Well, looks like Sony has around 4 properties on Nintendo Switch. So basically everywhere except Xbox. Now, that's temporary, as we just discussed, because once the Xbox gets Steam, then Sony's gonna just look like they have 0 exclusives left. That's it. It's a wrap. And before I forget, there's actually a third game that was announced in the Nintendo Direct, and it was a PS5 game, it was a PS4 game, it was a PS Vita game, and that's Freedom Wars. Freedom Wars Remastered is coming to the Nintendo Switch. Another 2014 action role-playing video game that was published by, you guessed it, Sony. Just, again, adding to my wonderful predictions, and that they're going to keep publishing these games. Now, Bandai Namco again are the ones that are taking the reins as far as developing it and bringing it over to the other systems, but these are 1000% Sony first party games. And I really am curious to know what your thoughts are when Sony eventually releases their own version of Game Pass. It's coming, guys, because they don't want you to own anything. Everything's going digital. And you know what's better than digital? A rotating catalog like Netflix that you can purchase the license and then slowly phase these games in and out of your service, especially the ones that aren't being streamed as much or played as much or has as many eyeballs on it. You can just slowly fade those away and you'll own nothing. And they reap all the benefits. And at the beginning, it's going to be so good. Just like Game Pass, just like Netflix. There's such a great library at the beginning of Netflix. And then slowly but surely, all these other companies are going to realize, why don't we just do our own version? Why don't we as Sega, we have a pretty big back catalog. Why don't we do a Sega channel with just Sega games? And then they slowly start pulling those games out of Game Pass and those games out of Sony's Play Pass, because they want to have their own version, their own ecosystem. But we're not there quite yet. I jumped the gun about a decade. Where we are right now is Microsoft publishes games on everything. They're going to have a console in the future, a PC-like console, that will have everything on it, including Steam, which means it'll have PlayStation games as well. So the last ones making a console with first-party exclusives that you haven't gotten anywhere else is Nintendo. Nintendo will be the last player in the game that, says, hey, this is how we're going to sell Switches. Our hardware will continue to reign. Now, what is this going to do? It's going to reduce the number of people choosing PlayStation consoles. Remember, Sony and Microsoft, for the most part, sell these systems at a loss. Where do they make their money? The software. They make their money on the software, on Game Pass, on PSN. That's where they can maximize their profits. So if you get rid of their loss leader, which is the console, and you spread your games across every other platform, you maximize profits. Now, I'm not saying that Sony's PlayStation 5 is going to, or PlayStation systems are going to go away. They're going to slowly move into a hybrid system as well, where they can publish games on their own console and not have to pay the publishing rights 30% fee to Microsoft or Nintendo or whatever. But what I am going to say is, what I have been saying, is Sony is 5 years behind Microsoft's plan, and they are now slowly but surely bringing smaller properties over to the other platforms, and they are 1000% on the way to creating their own version of Game Pass. And whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, the future for Sony is also going to be this mixed bag of publishing games across all the platforms, maybe doing timed exclusives, maybe 6 months, and if even that. And then, once those games are out, they'll publish them on Steam and they'll publish them on Nintendo. And because they're on Steam, they're going to be on the Xbox. What are your thoughts, guys? Let me know in the comments. Let me know how I'm wrong about Sony, just like I was wrong about Xbox, right? Let me know in the comments. As always, I want to thank you guys for being here on the channel, and we will catch you guys in the next video.